Let's bring in the BMA's Deputy Assistant Commissioner of Communications and Marketing, Mmemme Mogotsi, who joins us to discuss this. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, heavy rainfall, flooding, resulting in the decision to ensure some temporary measures are put in place. Talk to us about the, the strategy that had to be put in place to ensure that, you prioritize safety.
Yes, thank you, Mpo, and thank you to the viewers. Due to the increased rain, when the water level at the port of entry started to rise to a point where it has reached the offices where officials are operating, we had to ensure that, we suspend our operations. In this regard, what we have implemented, we have cut the electricity to ensure that there is safety for safety reasons. The generator as well that is used at the port had to be switched off. So in this regard, the residential area for our immigration officers as well as our offices are underwater as we speak. So we had to move critical equipment and documents, and because now we could see that the custom warehouse is also at the risk of being submerged soon. So in this regard, we have implemented a diversion where we've advised travelers to say they can use a number of ports of entries, 5 of them that have been mentioned. For commercial ports, the trucks that are coming in and out of Grobler's Bridge are advised to use a port of entry called Skillspathheg. And the other one is Kopfontein. The other one is Ramatlabama, as well as Bait Bridge port of entry. So we have been communicating this information to the truck drivers and all the travelers and stakeholders to say these are the commercial ports where trucks can come in and out. We also have non-commercial ports where travelers and small vehicles can be diverted to. We have Stockport port of entry, a smaller port, not far from Grobler's Bridge. We also have Platjan port of entry that can be used in this regard. So we had to ensure that, the safety of our travelers comes first, as well as our officials, as well as some of the equipment and documents that are on site.
As you and I speak, we know that some truck drivers continue to park outside the temporary closure, and there's a lot of concern, fear that their documents will expire, that the travel documents will expire while they wait for the port of entry to resume operations. How do we equate this? Is it perhaps maybe them not understanding or being aware that there are alternative routes? What is your reaction to that?
We have been advising everyone that is coming through near to the port that they are able to use the nearby ports of entries that have been mentioned. In this regard, we will be able to engage the truck drivers and see, what the issue is with regards to them not being able to divert to the mentioned port of entry. But in this regard, we have this temporary measure as we are not aware of when the operations will resume, as we are aware that when, electrical cables have been submerged, as I have indicated that most of our operating areas have been submerged in the water. In this regard, we would not necessarily say that the operations will resume as soon as the water levels have subsided. We need to bring in engineers who need to come and do evaluation and to ensure that, the port is safe for operation. And if you look at, the bridge that is nearby the port of entry, we also need to come and do assessments by engineers to look at, the stability of that bridge in terms of it being submerged underwater. So in this regard, we wouldn't be able to advise them in terms of when will the port of entry be resume its operations at this point. So the best option at this moment is for them to utilize the diversion ports of entries that we have provided. We have provided additional resources for them to assist, with increased movement that will be diverted to those ports of entries.
What you've mentioned is a lengthy to-do list. It doesn't sound like this is something that will happen in a couple of days. It sounds like we're talking about a couple of weeks.
In this regard, Mpo, I would like to highlight that this is not the first time that the port of entry has been flooded at this point, thereby forcing us to suspend operations, yes. And the last time when it happened, it took a number of days after the water levels have subsided for the operations to resume. So we would also like to advise the truck drivers to say, in this regard, even if the water levels would go down, there's still a bit of work that needs to be done in the port. And it's not a matter of a day whereby engineers will come in and assess the safety of operations. So it is best for all truckers and travelers to utilize the options that we have provided them as the Border Management Authority.
As those who fear that their travel documents will expire, are there contingency measures that will be put in place? I mean, would you say, for one, that if someone's, documents have expired, that they will still be allowed to pass through, pending, of course, when the opening will happen?
In this regard, we have to, follow the rules of the Immigration Act, whereby we are unable to process travelers with expired documents. I mean, there would need to be an assessment in terms of when did the documents expire. In this regard, my advice is that they would need to go to the provided ports of entry so that they're able to ensure that, their documents don't expire while they're parked outside the port of entry at Grobler's Bridge. We are not aware of any truckers that are parked there at the moment, because there is operations and monitoring on an hourly basis. There are officials that are operating on site as well, not within the port necessarily, but that are monitoring the situation and looking at the water levels. So I would advise that colleagues need to, the travelers need to engage maybe their truck companies and ensure that, the contingency of them being diverted to other ports of entry if they are so desperate to get into the country.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. An update there from the BMA's Deputy Assistant Commissioner of Communications and Marketing, Mmemme Mogotsi.